Welcome back, everybody, to Yellowcard TCG. It is both Toku and Zistro back once again to bring you some more commentary for Crow's Nest Premium No overTrigger Tournament. We already saw the last game. It was Randy versus DP, and Randy was able to come out victorious. And upcoming here, we have what looks to be Chaos Breaker against Victor. So once again, to remind everyone, this is Crow, aka Antonio Tut's personal, his own VGCS that he sets up over in Georgia. This one is called Crow's Nest. Once again, over at Kingslayer. Shout out to Kingslayer. And shout out to Antonio Tut, the man himself, Crow, for running these events. Once again, like we said, this is the No overTrigger Premium Tournament, and we will be getting into a game shortly for CBD versus Victor. What's your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite interesting because we saw in the previous round we had Thavas versus Dimension Police, two already well-known, respected decks in Premium, and now we're looking at Chaos and Victor, two maybe tier 2 decks, not less powerful, but less popular, less played, less meta decks in Premium. And one of the big issues with both these decks is that Chaos is a control deck that wants to play the long game, and Victor is a very fast deck that wants to just try and win out of nowhere. And the overTrigger here allows both decks to just win games they don't deserve to win, but also they lose games that they shouldn't just lose. So seeing these decks either who can win first or can Chaos set up the control in time is going to be really exciting to see. And I think having a format like this just brings a bit more agency, puts a bit more agency back in the hands of the players, and really shows that once you can consider all the options, once you've made the perfect plans, it's not going to be ruined by something that's out of your control. So once again, thanks to Crow, thanks to Kingslayer for providing us the footage to commentary over, but let's just get into the game.
So it looks like the game has just already started, and it looks like on the Chaos Breaker side of things, we are going to see the double Craven Claw column. Try saying that 3 times fast. Double Craven Claw column, which will be able to fish our deck for another Craven Claw. We're going to reshuffle again and try one more time to hopefully find something else. We do want to get that +2 that was given to us so nicely. And I think off the get-go already, if I was in the Victor player seat, I would be guarding for my life at this point. Because that Craven Claw in the back, you probably won't be able to do anything about it, but that Craven Claw on the Vanguard circle, if you were able to guard it this turn, you would have been able to deny that one for the rest of the game, since it would never appear again, if that makes sense.
I mean, looking at the Victor player's drop zone, we see that there's a Scarlet Bird and what looks to be like a trigger in there as well. So that implies to me that they did guard this column, and the Chaos player hit maybe a draw or a heal to break and put the Victor player on 1 damage.
Oh,
finds the
no.
Malyaki off the Xander ride is not awful in this matchup, but not great. Malyaki only gives you resist during your turn, so you get to dodge interactive G-Guards. But unfortunately, Chaos's interactive G-Guard, being the Lady Searcher of Planetary Minerals, gets through resist because it unlocks locked cards, which Chaos then retires. And then Chaos does all of its locking during its own turn when... Sorry, not Malyaki, Gunsdon, when Gunsdon doesn't give resist. So that's very dangerous there. I do like the damage denial here from the Victor player. It means that the Zirconium ride hasn't been able to do anything, but then the crit coming down...
Crit coming down, but we do get the heal, yep.
So it's not awful here, but he is still 2 damage to 0, which is not great. He gets the hit from the back row Clever Gore to find another Zirconium, which means that this Victor player, he's not able to do that much here, because any damage he gives Chaos at this point now means it's going to be either a Universe being strode, Zirconium's being activated, and here, this is one of the issues I think with Victor in the current format, which is that without History Collection, Victor really, really needs to go second. Victor going first doesn't really do anything. Sure, you see the Axel marker, he can get 2 extra attacks, he can get the 1 extra drive, but there's not that much plussing, there's not another crit coming in, there's nothing that Victor as a deck can do on the grade 3 ride-up turn to deny Chaos its the ability to stride and lock. There's no ride down, there's no resistance, so yeah, he's actually going to pass turn it because all of Chaos's good strides cost Counterblast, which I think is really, really smart. It means that he's losing a lot of hand size, but he's not going to lose the game out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think that's really respectful as well, and it's something that you would never think of, is that you're already down so much, and even on this turn, which is your Twin Drive turn, if you were going to attack in the early game, it would be this turn, right? Where you do get that extra card for drive checking twice, but choosing to, once again, not swing as well is a lot of discipline that's like very rare to see, and having no counterblast on the Chaos Breaker side of things means that they are effectively playing vanilla. But if we do have the Heal Guardian, we are going to be able to force that out, at least as the Victor player. Forcing that out to force your opponent to take a damage of their own volition is probably better than giving them that damage and like giving them the option to no guard. So
Yeah,
let them make the weird decisions.
So Chaos player actually goes for the Althani here instead of, say, a Glue Ball or an Avalanche. And something that I don't necessarily disagree with this, I just don't think Chaos should be running Althani anymore at all, because we just have better options now. But hey ho, you know, it's not awful. He does lock only the back row, so Gunsdon goes away, but again, without a front row to protect, it does not really do anything right now. And Victor here, very cleverly keeping their entire front row open, so that Chaos's swing back is very, very limited as to what it can do. So now the question is, as a control deck, do you want to start committing pieces to the board and start aggroing? Or are you just going to go van into van, let the Victor player do what they need to do, and try and go from there? He's actually going to commit the Zirconium without the counterblast for it at all, which I think is very dangerous. And he's going to commit the second Craven Claw just for an on-hit plus.
At least having the 2 Craven Claws on the board will force guarding decisions out of the Victor player. So yes, although committing the Zirconium this early is very risky, I can also see why they decided to do so, because rather than being able to go for just vanilla turns, unfortunately it ended up being a vanilla turn because of the defensive damage trigger. But otherwise, should there have been no defensive damage triggers, this would have forced out another potential guard. And it looks like they forgot to do the Craven Claw on hit this time around, but they already got the on hit on the Vanguard swing, so hey, it all evens out.
Yeah, so now the question is, what can the Victor player stride? Because they've got, with 2 locked back row circles, that Geralhawk in their hand is not doing anything. So they could go into the Busted here, but the issue with the Busted is that you need to get at least 1 or 2 hits in to get your rearguards to restand to get extra drives. So I think the safest stride they could go into right now would either be, yeah, the winning champ here, just to enable an easy GB3 to pop one of the Craven Claws and maybe draw a card. I think another option they could have got into here might have been the Ajdabulk. They have all the counterblast in the world, or maybe even Merciless Dragon, just try and like swing into rear, swing into van, and get some value off from that. But now the issue that they're facing here is that their numbers aren't going to hit without boosters. Like, the best thing you can do is having a Golshachi on the Axel Circle to be 14, then 20, which isn't awful, but again, that's... Oh, it won't get locked as resist, but then everything else you do is you're going to have to start attacking to the opponent's Vanguard. And then you risk leaving them bodies to lock. Like, see this cool Hank, it's just 9k, not going to hit without a trigger, going to get locked during your opponent's next turn. Same with the Golshachi, currently 9k, going to be 16 when it restands. But then all it's going to be restanding right now is just a 9k vanilla Hank, right?
Yeah. I think it's kind of cool, because I want to say, like, at the end of G, this was also a matchup that you would sometimes see, but like the narrative at this point is like completely different just because of the new tools that we have in the card pool. The lack of wanting to run the unlocking crits, which was one of the more popular tools that people would run. And I guess that is one of the reasons why the Victor player here is okay to go ahead and put some units in the front row, because they do have access to those unflipping G guards. But resources are limited, and we will have to see what our player will be able to do. So though then we are going to be able to get 5k left and right, I don't think it amounts to much against, now that the Chaos Breakers at 0 damage. They're happy to take that damage, take the counter blast that they've been waiting for the entire game, and convert it into the denial, into the control, into the locks that they want.
Yeah, what I don't understand is why the Victor player didn't put that cool Hank on the Axel, because then at least it would have been 14 swinging into that 10k Zirconium. Like, instead of whiffing an attack, you can get some value out of it. And then when Cool Hank restands from the Golshachi to become 19 with the 5k from Victor, it would then be at least asking for 10k shield from the Chaos Breaker. And again, in this sort of matchup, because you already have 2 locked rearguards in the back row, you are 100% losing that Axel Circle anyway. So you're going to be losing the rearguard on that Axel Circle anyway, but then what that means is that you then leave a front row circle open for your rearguard for you to call to your next turn. Since you're going to lose an Axel Circle to the quote-unquote lock, you might as well lose it to losing the Axel already.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to think about as well, yeah. Because
Like,
you're going to
instead,
lose the
what's gonna
circle
happen
as
here
well.
is-
Yeah.
Exactly. So what's going to happen here is at the end of the victor player's turn, they're going to unlock 2 rear guards, lose the Axel circle, but then they'll have a full front row for the Chaos player to do whatever hell they want with.
Oh,
And
gonna see the promo there, which will unlock our back row to unlock at the battle phase to get us that force marker at that timing.
Yeah, so the argument there to not putting the cool hang on the marker is you don't want to see planetary minerals come down and then Chaos gets the retired mid-battle. But then the argument there is that you're still forcing out the planetary minerals earlier rather than later, which means that there's less shenanigans for you to play with or for you to mess around with once your opponent gets going.
And on the guns that unlock, we're also going to use the Chaos Breaker one more time to get that retire and the draw out. We are going to see the rewrite for the soul and what will be our stride of choice. So no more markers to steal, so no point in going into that 1 premium collection stride. What would you do in this situation as a Chaos player yourself?
100% glue ball. Because
Just glue ball for game?
Not game, you just lock down your opponent's front row, which means that they then now need to either re-ride or they just don't play the game, which is already really, really powerful. And then the glue ball also then giving your front row plus 4k. It's 2k for each locked unit. So that alone will now be able to... Everything can now make numbers. Even the Craving Claw, because it's 8 plus 4 makes 12 into Axel, hits 12.
Oh, and also still has that cheeky on-hit effect as well. But then, like, swing it back into the other side of things. Let's say the Chaos Breaker does go into Glue Ball, does lock the front row, leaves you stranded and scrambling for plays to make. What is your play on the swing back? Would it just be Bustard and try and go for like a 5-0 double swing? Because we don't have like the drives anymore, or do we not even have the ability to?
No, without the re-ride, you literally cannot gain drives at all. So if the Victor player doesn't re-ride, their literal only option becomes Victoplasma, the restander. There's nothing else they can do otherwise. Ajda Bolt will do nothing. They could maybe try a cheeky Origorum. Like, if they have the re-ride, they can just go into, like, stride Origorum instead of re-riding. But I think that's still worse than just going for, like, say the Bastard or the Merciless or what have you. Chaos, meanwhile, thinking really hard about what to do here. They've got the one counterblast they can use, and then we saw them, they did drive check the Globuladia last turn, so they can at least use that counterblast. Instead, going to go for the Universe, which I think is really curious here, because your opponent already has a filled up front row. You don't need to use Universe to clog up their board any further, and unless you have Photon or something else in your hand that can lock the other front row unit, you want to shut down both of their front rows this turn, which you won't be able to do unless you have extra lock pieces. So he's going to rip the card out of hand, which is going to be the Quick Shield, which just vanishes. He can't lock the Golshachi because it's got Resist. So then the Hank just gets locked. But again, like, ripping the Quick Shield out of your opponent's hand was just so inconsequential here. At that point, you might as well have just gone into the Deluge. And we know that they have the Close in hand because they drove checked it. So that would have been Quick Shield plus at least one other card out of the hand, which would have been way more impactful in my eyes.
Now, I guess, like, swinging back to the previous comment about going into Glue Ball, does Glue Ball play around Golsachi's Resist?
It does not.
It does not. So, regardless which way we spin it, Golsachi would be able to remain there. What does Chaos Breaker have to deal with Resist units?
Pretty much nothing.
Alright, so that Golsachi is staying there, but I guess it also gives us a very good venue of units to attack into. But I guess that is also Victor's saving grace, is if they can redirect any attacks into the Golsachi rather than the Vanguard, that is cards in hand save that we can use to be able to use our open circles to try and make a better crackback on the next turn.
Yeah, but again, like I mentioned the previous turn, if the Victor player had just caught this Cool Hank onto the Axel circle, that Cool Hank would now be gone, sure, but then the Victor player would have 2 open front row circles, well, Golshachi and an open circle to deal with going into next turn, and given that the Chaos player didn't rewrite into Freeze Ray, there is nothing the Chaos player can do to interact with that new board, and you'd be able to get at least 3 restands, which now means Boston would have been way more threatening. You see here that even though we saw the Photon and the Globuladia in the Chaos player's hand, they're instead just committing a pair of White Dwarfs, which are just 13k vanillas at this point. So this isn't really a big aggro turn either, where I say like, if they had gone into either the Deluge or maybe even just the Glue Ball, plus the Globuladia, plus these White Dwarfs, the Chaos player would be looking at closer towards like 25, maybe 30k columns. Hawk, Shoebill, and Metanax Dragon are two cards I have not seen since the G era. So to me, this looks less like a Chaos deck built for the meta and more like a G Chaos deck with premium cards shoved into it. But yeah, they attacked the rear guard with the Golshachi to get off the board. But again, no way of like punishing the Victor player for now. And I actually don't like attacking to the Golshachi here because there's no way that the Victor player doesn't have ways of replacing that rear guard. And so attacking their rear guard does in this situation is just protect them from 1 damage or give them extra shield in hand. Like, you want to force the Victor to play beyond 4 or 5 because without a full board, they can't go to the favorite champ combo anyway, so you're under no threat of dying to favorite champ. So you might as well just try and get whatever damage you can get in and get you closer to the win, extend that damage lead, just make Victor work that a little bit harder to actually win the game here.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with you on that standpoint right there. Like I said, that Golsachi being a very good target to draw attention and basically forcing that Vanguard swing into Golsachi means that we were able to save a potential PG for that turn, potentially save 2 to 3 triggers worth of guarding for that turn. So effectively, I think having that Golsachi on the board became almost a turn skip of sorts. We already had 2 rear guards on the sides which could have attacked the Golsachi, so I think it was very curious as to why we went Vanguard to Golsachi rather than Vanguard to Vanguard and then swing at Golsachi, or like give their opponent the idea to intercept with the Golsachi if they decided to, which they probably would not because that is probably their main role player in this matchup. But we are going to see the stride into the Merciless, and we're going to go ahead and see probably that G-Guard using its skill to unlock the Cool Hank there. We're going to need a lot of soul for this matchup to be able to continuously use the G-Guard, flip it back down, use a G-Guard, flip it back down for all of those unlocks. So if I do recall correctly, that crit that I see in hand there is one of the... Is that the Persona crit, the one that goes to Soul and gives 10k, or is that like that really old one, Soul in give 3k?
That's the Insult 10k draw, Magna Gauss. Yeah. So we see here that the Victor player ends up striding into the Merciless Dragon. Chaos player chooses not to remove the Cool Hank in this scenario, which makes sense. You know, they're going to get the restands no matter what. There's nothing you can do about it. But again, we're looking at a matchup where 1 crit swings the game. Like, if the Chaos player drove check a crit that last turn into the swing into Vanguard, Victor player would be dead. Well, Victor player got a defensive heal, so not really, but again... And now that the Victor player's on the Merciless, that's their restanding Vanguard. 1 crit on the Merciless here could be lethal for the Chaos player, and the fact that they chose not to just break down the Victor player's hand with a Deluge could now be coming back to bite them. You know, there's Gerahawk boosting a Ninjad, giving plus 4k twice. You've got the Cool Hand being boosted by the Arashid, which now makes good numbers as well, 22 on its own. Like, there's a lot of potential for the Victor player to just really go to town here. And what's more is that the Arashid boosting the Cool Hank also means that unless the Chaos player goes into a Lacus Karina, they can't disrupt the Gerahawk because Cosmo Wreath is your opponent chooses. So the Chaos player currently has no damage, so they can no guard this. And now the counterblast that they'll get, they have to choose, like, do I use it to disrupt that Gerahawk, or do I use it to try and just Lacus Karina or shut down my opponent's turn?
And oh my god, we do see the counter charge heal as well. Now, if I do recall correctly, as of History Collection, which hasn't come out yet, those have been reprinted and eroded to be larger shield?
15k shield, 10k power, yes. So at the moment, it is just a 5k heal, but Chaos does really need the resources, and the Starvader name goes a long way as well, which means you can add it off of Cravenclaw. So we see here the Ninjad coming in, and even though the Gerahawk wasn't disrupted, we still restand the Ninjad, get a bit of power, and then Ninjad can then now restand the Cool Hank later on for extra benefits off of that Merciless.
And then there's that crit that we wanted to see. So if there should be 1 more Merciless restand at this turn, correct?
2 more.
2 more. So that crit is going to go a long way, forcing multiple guards out of the Vanguard swings, even if 1 drive, even with a 0 drive. So here comes a Cool Hank swing here. 22 to our opponent's 18 with the Arashid boost. And just thinking on the discard, I believe, or I believe we already discarded to get the restand on the Ninjard. So just thinking about the guarding patterns here.
No, we haven't. It's because we haven't used... I don't think we used Ninjad's stand yet. So they're going to attack with Ninjad, or attack with Ninjad, stand the Cool Hank, stand the Vanguard, attack with Vanguard, then attack with Cool Hank, stand the Ninjad, stand the Vanguard. That's the pattern we're going with.
Okay, yeah. So that's how we're going to do this.
And the thing to remember with Chaos's G-Guards, all of Link Joker's G-Guards, they only disrupt the back row. None of them disrupt the front row. So there's nothing the Chaos player can do to stop these multiple restands coming in.
So there it is. Yeah, there's the Ninjard restand, the Cool Hank into the Great One. Now, here's an interesting thing.
You've got crit pressure on the Vanguard, which makes sense. You don't want your opponent to go to 5 and heal down.
Yes.
You just attack the rear guards with your rear guards, and then all your opponent has to deal with is just this crit pressure Vanguard, which the hand is chunky. It shouldn't be that hard to PG once or twice. So there's Beacon, which is...
there's Beacon, yep.
A very good meta call. And now Cool Hank will attack the rear guard, still hits, and now can discard 1 and restand the Ninjad to restand Merciless, I believe.
So there's Cool Hank discarding to restand the Ninjad, and then Merciless effect.
Yep. So now it'll have 0 drives, but it's still got the crit power behind it, and Ninjad still has the +6 from the G-Zone face-up, that its own effect. He's actually going to pass here. Oh, guess he didn't have Counterblast for the last instance of the... Yeah, he only had 3 Counterblast face-up. One of them was used for Ninjad, and then he restood twice. So we weren't able to go for the lethal swing.
Thank you, cameraman.
And now at 4-4... So now Chaos will stride into the Deluge. There goes the close.
Yeah, that should be the Deluge. Oh,
okay.
Into Avalanche.
That's regular glue ball.
That's regular glue ball. Oh.
Which I think is fine as well, because now that the Golshachi is not on the board, there's no resist to deal with. So now the Chaos player can just get a full board lock out of this glue ball. But first he's going to use close to force the opponent to lock from hand. And now he gets the player's turn. So if the Chaos player can just... The Zirconium would be really, really strong here.
Oh, Zirconium would be so good here. Yeah, that would go for like lethal because of the base 2 crit, but also fill up the board, leave you only with the Vanguard. Hopefully you have some heal guardians here to be able to G-Guard into some of the flippers, but based on the drive checks last turn, I don't think there's the Zirconium going to be able to get that 5 lock. Zirconium's going to be able to... Yep.
It also means that Glue Ball's effect will now give the entire front row 15k, which really helps with going for game here.
Oh, yes.
So another White Dwarf misses, and I also want to point out here that we saw from the Victor player, they locked an Energy Girl off the top of their deck, which is not a card that you and I have seen in Victor lists in a long, long time, because, as we keep mentioning, it anti-synergizes with your attack pattern. You really want like the Catchy Wall instead, so that you can stand it with the Cool Hank, which will then stand your Golshachi, which makes your Busted and Winning Champ combos even stronger. And the argument to the Energy Girl is that it replaces the Jerahawk, but Jerahawk is a draw card, which you already want to begin with. Photon coming down, being slightly wasted. I actually would have really liked to see Globuladia here, because sure, the lock effect is wasted as well, but then at least it becomes 15k base on its own, which is really, really solid. The Quark Shoebill going into Soul, pumping up the Zirconium, doesn't really make numbers. I think
putting that one on the Photon would have been a lot better, because that would have pushed us to 22-25. Like, luckily that we're playing against an Axel, but apart from that, it doesn't super matter that much. Even then, okay, finding the crit, putting it all onto the Photon there, that gets pulled out the PG. So we're gonna go with the Photon with the crit here, trying to go for a game here now. In your position, would you ever think about swinging with that Zirconium? I'm saying that we just leave our opponent at 0 face down the entire game, because then it forces them into a decision of, do we unflip our G-Guard for... Oh, but just choosing to take it and not enough cards to hand, and that'll be the decision made for them.
Yeah, he's only got the crit in hand, which is 15k shield, which puts him to 27, which is not enough to deal with this 32k Photon column coming in, so... Yeah, Chaos will take the game. Some really good crits coming there. We see there the Victor's player's deck is still full of triggers. Unfortunate there. I think it's just a case of he had the chance to destroy the Chaos player when he did, chose not to take it, and then the Chaos player, control decks have inevitability. Combo decks like Victor don't. Like, there's no you win or you don't. It's the case of you have to try and maybe you win. Whereas Chaos would be like, at some point, I will rip all the cards out of your hand, you will be unable to play the game, and I will win. And even though Victor, they're able to like put up a bit of a fight, they were just unable to like rip through that Chaos player's hand. They weren't able to capitalize on the fact that Chaos committed super early, and they just lost control of the game from that point.
Now, I want to kind of like bring it back to like the early game. Like, yes, we said that the damage denial was very important, but like also similar to how Tavis played against the DP in the game prior, how they were able to aggress early and make guarding decisions a lot harder for the DP player. Do you think that there was ever a world where you actually aggress the Chaos Breaker player early, give them the counter blast that they want for the Zirconium, but then you just keep going face, and for the turn where you are able to like potentially double G guard, double flip face up your front row, do a double Gosashi which has resist, and just like play off of that front row as well as the Merciless. But at that point, your opponent's at a higher damage point. Do you think that there could have been a line like that we could have gone towards, rather than give our opponent so many free turns for them to like amass cards without having to deal with these guarding decisions?
It's a difficult argument because a lot of Link Joker's good strides don't cost counterblast, especially the ones that lock the board. All of the counterblasting strides in Link Joker generate advantage. You know, things like Cosmic Dawn, things like Universe. The two big locking strides we have are both the glue balls, which are soul blast cost, not counterblast cost. So regardless of whether you damage an eye or aggro the Link Joker player, they will always be able to shut down your board no matter what, unless your board has resist innately. So even if you rush them, all rushing them does is give them counterblast to use on things like Zirconium, Globuladia, which will then fill your board even further, which will then make it harder for you to actually deny them that board to lock. So I think damage denying was smart. It reduced the amount of locks onto the board, but then I think the problem then is that once you damage deny them to a point, once they start striding, that's when you rush them. Because once they start striding, they can get rid of your board no matter what, so you're never going to have a board. So what board you were able to make, you needed to generate as much value as you could out of it before you lost the chance to, which again, we saw that the Victor player was just not able to do. And like, I understand going into winning champ for the plus 5k so that your attacks actually hit, but again, Victor's winning champs at GB3 is only draw one card, whereas Busted basically says draw a card for every restand with all the plus drives it gets. Plus you have the crit pressure to try and win the game out of nowhere on top. Plus you have the ability to trigger draws, which will give you for even more pieces. And again, just like letting the hack die on the Axel, you know, it still would have done its job is the most important thing there. It still would have given you the drives. And that I think would have gone a long way to digging into that Victor player's deck for all of those PGs that were still in there.
Okay, yeah. I think that's a very good insight, and I think this was a very good showcase of like a control versus an aggro deck, seeing how like the two narratives of a potential format look to be. And like you said before, like the Chaos deck wasn't really exactly tuned to the current premium format. It was a lot of it was G pieces. We saw stuff like Photon, we saw the Shoehorn, we saw Axe Biter, Meteor Axe. But like we saw a lot of old technology that was used at the end of G being brought back here. And I think it just comes down to the mechanic of block being able to deal with a lot of these rearguard reliant decks. And though Victor now has like tools in Merciless to be able to play without rearguards, it just kind of demonstrates how much extra, how do I say, the burden of performance being put on you as a combo deck going into the control deck.
Yeah, for sure. And unfortunately, the Nova Grappler player just played a little bit too aggressively. They left a board to be locked, and they just weren't able to really push that grade 3. Like I keep saying, Victor, without History Collection, Victor has to go second because its Ride Up just does pretty much nothing to threaten the opponent. And we see there, you know, they weren't able to get the drive from the Victor Grade 3 effect. They weren't able to plus from anything onto the board. And all they did was just Twin Drive. They passed turn. They didn't even get the Twin Drive. They just couldn't do anything. And then at that point, like I mentioned, once the Chaos player starts striding, you pretty much have no chance of winning the game, even with unlocking G guards. And even if they were playing like the unlocking crit, they had all the counterblast in the world to play with, it wouldn't have done much. So that is going to be the end of this. Once again, thank you as always to Crow, and well done to the Kingslayer team for putting on an event like this. Can't wait for the next one, and yeah, stay tuned, and we'll hopefully have the next few games up for you coming soon.
This has been Token Sister from Yellowcard Vanguard. Once again, thank you for watching, and make sure to do that usual algorithm stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. If you liked it, leave a comment down below. If you didn't like it, leave a comment down below. We appreciate all nonetheless, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.